Lots and lots of questions. The premiers gathered in Halifax and they called out Trudeau to stick to your lane. But how can a Chinese communist stick to their lane? What do you mean stick to your lane? And how come the premiers aren't saying, hey, there seems to be foreign interference to the tune of treason in our government and we're not going to listen to the federal government until there's an election or something like that? Some kind of pressure? Why not? Where is it? What's going on? In Toronto, they're trying to pass off infrastructure neglect as climate change. Now, yesterday, Toronto got flooded. There's a whole bunch of people with power out, et cetera, but that's not climate change, folks. That's neglect of your tax dollars paying for shelters for foreigners. That's what's going on. Why are they drafting men into women's hockey? I don't know, but I'll show you that. And yeah, we'll talk about flash floods. We're going to start in flash flooding in Toronto. There's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. We're going to start with the CBC reporter, and she says, reporting, so the power is out in the CBC newsroom. Never in all my years working here has this ever happened. And apparently it has happened before. She says, check the comments, as I apparently have a bad memory or have never been working on one of the previous power outage days. It has happened before, but it's rare. Yes, we have a generator that is kicked in to keep some lights on. So there's a generator in a lot of big buildings to make sure it's not a catastrophic power failure, and there's like emergency lights and things like that, right? And that's standard. But here's what was going on causing all of these issues. Christie says flash flooding has turned Toronto, Canada into waterfront property. It already Lake Ontario. Okay, never mind. Today they paid too much in did they pay too much in carbon tax? Yes, actually, this is, I posted a story of a guy who was paid to make it rain, and he injected the atmosphere with a whole bunch of aerosols, and then it rained too much and people were mad. This seems like that. This doesn't seem climate changey to me. Anyway, Six Buzz says, seen from Mississauga right now, and it's just water everywhere. Water just flowing. Well, right now it's a spinning kind of loading icon, but if you could see it, it'd be water everywhere. Okay, I fixed it. And can I turn the sound on? There is no sound, I guess, on this video, but it's a very, like, the street is in the middle of a flash flood. Here's a UPS guy. He's sitting there reading. He's just checking his phone. It's just, I mean, it's still under the floorboards. He's not worried that his packages are getting wet, and he's just going to wait for this river to dissipate before he carries on his merry way, right? Like, wow, that's pretty wild stuff, right? Here is RF. And RF says, I wonder what Pierre Poilievre's plan is to deal with extreme weather events like the flooding Toronto is experiencing and the challenges they posed to infrastructure, because axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, stop the crime isn't going to cut it. Huh. We need to become tyrannical people in order to change the weather. And we expect our politicians to be able to change the weather or lie to us about being able to change the weather. Nothing less will suffice. Yeah, okay. Sure, buddy. Like, get in touch with reality, man. Taxes aren't going to change the weather. And this whole push, what would change the weather is if we stopped those planes spraying in the skies. That would stop all of this. I'm very confident. I have a hypothesis, you see. True North says a severe rainstorm in Toronto led to mass flooding. Vehicles abandoned on busy roads. I did watch one video yesterday of a guy abandoning his car on the lakeshore, and over 165,000 people without power. 165,000. That's a lot of people without power. Although, to put it into perspective, Toronto has more than 1 million people living there. So it's not, I mean, yeah, 10%. It's more than 1 million, isn't it? Hold on. I'm going to look up the population of Toronto. Okay, so the population of Toronto is almost 3 million. As of 2022, 3 million, just over. So yeah, probably much more than 3 million now. So 165,000 people. It's not 10%. It's not 5%. It's less than that. So still a lot of people without power due to rainfall. The reason I'm telling you this so much is because they're going to use this as an excuse as a justification for their climate change policies. Oh, didn't you remember the rainstorm that we had in Toronto? Right, that was climate change. Oh, cool. How do you know that? Radio Genoa says, it doesn't look like Europe, but it's London. So we're starting with the rain, and now we'll talk about the invasion ongoing in the West. And here is somebody taking video of what's happening in a street in London. I don't know what they're protesting, but I'm sure it's nonsense. I'm sure somebody's paid these people to be there. Here we go. Is this like coming downstairs to a robber in your house? And then you think, well, it's too late to lock the door, right? Like, ooh. Fat Tony says, I don't understand how politicians are in a huge hurry to import millions of people. I don't care how this is going to drastically hurt their country. I don't know how anybody who thinks it's a good idea, yet politicians just do it anyway. It's because our leaders have been usurped by globalist communists. And the whole point is to destabilize our society, because stable societies don't demand communism. So you have to destroy those stable societies. So people say, hey, yeah, I'm oppressed too. I need some government handouts, please. Not understanding that the government handouts are paid for by you and me. And so you can't bring forth a communist state from a stable capitalist state. So you have to destroy the stable capitalist state in order to turn it into a third world country that they know they can manipulate into a communist dictatorship and worse, right? And so that's what's going on. And we're apparently allowing it because we're we're not willing to face reality, or if we do face reality, we can't as a society face reality. You can only individually face reality, and society is just going to sit back and allow it all to happen. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating. Sid is a rebel news reporter. He says mass immigration is just government-approved human trafficking with extra platitudes. That was worth a follow, Sid. Yeah, he's not wrong. Zoltan says, well said. I think it's easy to forget that many immigrants have been victimized by this sick system as well. I've said for a long time, the people coming here are victims in this whole scam too, right? I don't think, and I mean, Diagolon has some unbelievably effective memes that are able to communicate people's discomfort with all of this. But victim blaming, and I feel the same way, victim blaming Canadians for having their leadership stolen, taken away, and we're unable to self-govern, and yet people say, well, you get what you voted for. We didn't vote for this. We are being attacked currently. It's happening in real time right now. We're in the middle of a communist coup. And part of that coup is destabilizing our society through using our tax dollars to import millions of people, Cloward Piven strategy, overwhelm the system until it collapses. That's what's going on. Unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong, but that's what it looks like. Michael says Tipperary, this is in Ireland, and in Tipperary, the total population is 165 people, and they want to bring in 280 migrants. Michael says the government plans to plant 280 migrants into a village of 165 people. You wonder why Irish people are angry. We're fighting a war against population replacement, and if you're too stupid to realize it yet, we'll fight you. So the Irish aren't joking, man. They're not joking around. Rebel News says, why is Ireland destroying itself? We're in Ireland studying their immigration policy. It's looking like a car crash. It's terrible, but we can't stop staring. The government here has gone mad. It's bringing in hundreds of thousands of migrants in a country with just 5 million people, but 1/5 of the population is now foreign born. Today, we learned about the village of Dundurn in County Tipperary. So it's the same thing. There's just 175 people. So apparently there's more in Tipperary, but the government wants to plant 280 migrants there. They're transforming Dundurm's main tourist attraction, a gorgeous country estate, into a refugee camp. That's where they're all going to live. Dundurn has been an Irish village for centuries. Now it's going to be another thing, Palestinian or Afghan or something else, but it won't really be Irish in language, culture, or history anymore, will it? So this is replacement on steroids. What happens when that comes to your town? What happens when your town has 100,000 people who are old stock Canadians and they bring in 200,000 Afghans or Palestinians or whatever it is, whatever replacement population they've hoodwinked into coming here? Because again, victims, right? And everybody's they're the red ants, we're the black ants, or whatever color you all want. And they've put us in the jar, and we're all kind of like, cool, whatever, cool, right? Passing you by. Cool, right? Red ant, black ant, doesn't matter what it is. And then somebody's shaking the jar and we're like, those red ants, those black ants, right? Well, get them, right? And that's it's by design. That's the point. The whole point is conflict. And I've been banging that drum for a while too. True North says, this is in Newfoundland. True North says, we'd certainly be interested in doing our fair share. Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Andrew Furey is asked if his province is willing to accept asylum seekers from Quebec. How about we deport them? How about we stop taking responsibility for something that's not our responsibility and we deport them? How about that? We could send them to Tipperary. Apparently they want them. Well, the government does anyway. I'm just kidding. Obviously, I wouldn't do that. But fundamentally, I think that it is absolutely insane what's going on, and it's happening everywhere in the West. And the point is to flood the West, to overwhelm its systems, in order to bring about communism. Dr. Leslyn Lewis is pointing out that, hey, Justin Trudeau, you're not building any homes despite promising building homes. Home building is not the solution. It is a mask that the Conservatives are able to wear to pretend that they're doing something about building homes, about the invasion that's going on, but they're not. They're just trying to build homes for foreigners, maybe? I think a lot of these people mean well, but they haven't thought out what's going on. They haven't looked at it, or they're too afraid to say it, because if they say it, they're jeopardizing their career. Dr. Lewis is responding to this Globe and Mail article. Globe and Mail article says Canadian housing starts fell 9% in June from the previous month, CMHC says. And Leslyn Lewis says if the Liberals want to meet their 2031 housing target, they must build 1,096 homes every minute. Yet with housing starts still plummeting, this is clearly just an empty promise built on a house of cards. Yeah, they're communists. And they're banking on an event, maybe an assassination or something, to change the course of where we're headed right now. And if we change the course of where we're headed, then they'll be able to get away with continuing their grift, continuing their flooding of our country and so on, continuing shaking the jar. Pierre Poilievre says $4 billion, dozens of photo ops. What are Trudeau's results? Housing starts have decreased by 13% since last year, according to Trudeau's own housing agency. Support our common sense plan to build homes, not bureaucracy. How about we just stop importing people? How about we do that? How about we focus on talking about that? How about we say we're going to stop bringing people here who we can't house, and we're going to make sure Canadians can afford their housing again? How about that? How about that? That sounds great, right? Build the homes? No, thanks. No, I don't need to build homes. We just need to stop the flood of people coming here. And then once we've gotten control of that, assess what we've got and then build an appropriate amount of homes. Sure. And should we build the number of homes that we've been historically building? Sure. 225. Sure. Great. Build those homes. But should we try and double or triple or quadruple the number of homes we built to solve this immigration problem? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The premiers had a meeting all together in Halifax, and Danielle Smith is talking about that. She says, I think we share a common interest as premiers. We would really love to see them focus on those things that are economy building, productivity building, and stop trying to micromanage our affairs. And premiers gather in Halifax with a message for Trudeau, stick to your lane. Again, fundamentally, we have evidence, CSIS leaks, all sorts of things going back years now, talking about Chinese interference, corruption, and traitors in our government. And the premiers are acting like everything's just fine. All that needs to happen is Justin Trudeau needs to stay in his jurisdiction. Why would we expect people who are working for foreign interests to stay in their jurisdiction? They're going to do everything they can to subvert everything they can as quickly as they can. And not talking about it just propels and propagates the damage that is being done anyway. And it's awful and terrible. And, well, what's your game, Danielle Smith? Gosh darn it. The Post-Millennial is reporting this. Now, I've said before, I'll say again, the whole push to get women into the workforce was to steal women's productivity in the form of tax dollars. Okay, that's it. It was not about equality. It wasn't about anything. Now, were there real issues that may have needed fixing? Sure. Having a woman in a situation where she was being beat up, or beat up's like a catch-all for mistreated generally by her family or husband or something like that. She needs the ability to get out, and having a job seemed to be the answer to that, I guess. But that was used as a justification for society to accept this idea that, yeah, women and men should work. And the reality is probably not. You should probably have one breadwinner. You should probably have somebody else whose job it is to make sure the house is in order and things like that, right? You're a team after all. So somebody goes out to work, somebody makes the dinner and makes the beds and all the rest of that stuff. Not to say the person who goes out to work shouldn't do dishes or shouldn't contribute to the household. Not saying that at all. But this whole idea that men exploited women to build society or something is a ridiculous thing that should be completely, wholly rejected. The only reason feminism was brought about was so that rich men could steal the productivity of women who don't question this more. Post-Millennial says record high number of American moms with kids under 6 have jobs. So you going to work again, Mom? Yep. I'm going to go hang out with a babysitter. Yep. So there you go, right? Latchkey kids were a thing. And I remember a lot of latchkey kids, like the 90s. I wasn't a latchkey kid necessarily, but my mom worked nights, so she'd kind of be sleeping or whatever. So we were kind of left to our own devices, but they're a parent's home. But that was even better because, you could ask permission for things and your mom was half asleep, or my mom was half asleep. And it was like, yeah, go play in the park or whatever you're going to do. See you later. And so we could go out and be creative and come back when the streetlights came on. And that seemed completely normal and fine. And the latchkey kid thing produced two different kinds of kids who would, survive and just kind of go out and find something to do and be fine. And then the other kind of kid were the traumatized kid. And we didn't find out about them until years later. And they were like, oh, my parents were latchkey kids. Maybe it was terrible, but I don't remember it as being terrible. But like, I had a lot of friends who were latchkey kids. We all hung out at my place. And then we'd get into trouble. I'd be like, yeah, we're going to whoever's place. And, the question would be, is somebody home? And my answer would be probably. But we'd just go to the park or something anyway. So really, this whole idea of getting moms into work, it's not ideal unless you have a way to, allow your kids to be supervised, kind of. Franco says, my childhood was great. Franco is responding to National Post. National Post says, this is a grab bag of governance, just in case you weren't sure where we were. National Post says, federal government hired more than 10,000 new public servants last year to reach record high. National Post. This is buying votes, everyone. They're just purchasing votes. They're like, oh, we'd like people to vote for us. How could we get them to do that? Let's give them jobs they wouldn't otherwise be qualified for or get. Oh, okay. And they'll vote for us? Oh, yeah, definitely. In droves. In the 10,000s. And all it'll cost us is the taxpayer money. So they don't care. They don't care. Trudeau added 108,000 extra bureaucrats since taking power. That's a 42% increase. Trudeau's bureaucrat hiring spree is out of control and ordinary taxpayers are paying the price. So 108,000 votes is probably not worth the amount of money taxpayers are saddled with that, right? So jeepers creepers. All in Toronto, you say. Crazy. Here's Wolf, and Wolf says, why Britain is poor is explained by this guy. The short answer is it's by design. So the meat and potatoes of it is he's saying that this is a 2-minute long video and he kind of repeats it twice. And then at the end of the second minute, he has like a nice little, wraps it up, nice little punch. And so, but fundamentally what he's saying is governments campaigning are making promises based on what you would do if you were unencumbered by laws or previous legislation that would tie you into, you have to do these 8 things before you can expand the motorway, right? And so you say, I'm going to expand the motorway. And then you get into office and he says, sit down, Mr. Starmer. These are the 9 things you need to do. And it's going to take 15 years to build the motorway that you were talking about to your constituents there. And unless Starmer takes that on and crushes that bureaucracy, nothing's going to change. That's the whole point of this. I think it's well worth listening to. British accent, I hope that's okay. Here we go.
The actual timeline for the project, like the A66, right, is like this thing for 6 years, then that thing for 6 years, then that thing for 6 years, then that thing. And then after 25 years or so, they actually start digging.
Oh, there's a change. There's an election and a new MP.
Yeah, and people don't realise like this is so like this is by design, and all parts of the system. Lots of these things work because consultants make loads of money out of it. Lawyers make loads of money out of it. Whitehall knows no other way. It's literally inconceivable, the idea of building a road in like 3 years. And it's not just a question of... so if Starmer is serious, he's going to have to come in, look at this, his head will explode, and then they'll be faced with very hard things like, okay, are you actually going to go into Parliament and use your majority to bulldoze the hybrid bill system into the earth, and then deal with all of these planning systems, and the judicial review, and the environmental reviews, and everything else? Because if not, it will, like everything else in British politics, it'll end up just being rhetoric and it won't work. And the media's response to it will be, well, is it a political priority or not? The media never, ever, ever report all of these actual core legal constraints on the centre of government.
And make no doubt now, to take it one step further, if Starmer came in and realized all this, now he knew all this beforehand anyway, it doesn't matter, but came in and realized this and then said, right, we're going to bulldoze this bureaucracy into the ground. Do you know that the media would go absolutely bonkers? They would say Starmer's a tyrant. He's the brand new H-man, right? He's all of these things. He's terrible. He's awful. You can't listen to him. He's going to destroy democracy, blah, 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 blah. He's Gaddafi. He's whatever, all the bad things. Trump, right? He's terrible. He's the new Trump. He's the British Trump. And if you try to actually address the core issues, because listen, the lawyers, they make money, lots and lots of money. Oh, you need us to look at a contract for the next 4 miles of road. Well, it looks above board. That's $7,000, $7 million, whatever it is, right? $1 billion, whatever it is. And the lawyers make money. The consultants make money. The bureaucrats know no other way. You come in, you get elected. hello, Mr. MP Mark. Here's your Mark Peralvis MP. Okay. Here's your package of things you can and cannot do, right? And you read through the package and you're like, oh, well, I can't do this. I can't do this. And it's all the bureaucracy that you didn't understand or you didn't know about before or whatever. And all of that is set to limit you and to bring you into a situation where like you're taking the torch from the previous government. This infrastructure project is, 3/4 of the way through, halfway through. What do you want to do? These approvals are on your plate type deal. What's next? And it is a process that is much longer than a single term, all by design. Why? Because the Westminster people, the people who are in the bureaucracy, are taught that this is the only way to do it. Here's the torch. You're taking it. It's going to take 6 more years and you'll probably be out of office. But the next person who comes in will finish it. Here's one that you get to finish, blah, 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 blah. It was started 10 years ago and this is how long these things take. You're just trained that way. It's bullshit because the lawyers and consultants make money. It's bullshit. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm saying this is how people are acclimatized. You get onboarded and you get told this is how it works. It's like going into Taco Bell and you think you know how to make a taco, right? And they're like, nope, this is how you make a taco. And then you make it their way, right? So that's what they took control of the parliamentary system in order to continue to push their ideology and continue to steal money through tax money through lawyers, right? And taxes and all the rest of it. So like the lawyers make lots of money, then they pay taxes on that. And then the consultants make lots of money, as we know in Canada, right? And they kind of pay taxes on that, as we know in Canada. And the Westminster system, they're quite happy to launder that money out because it's also influence, right? Lawyers and consultants and experts, right? Lots of influence there. I mean money, I mean influence, right? It's all the same. So nobody has an incentive to fix this, least of all the people who are coming in who don't know how it all works and who are being told how it all works. And they think to themselves, I'm pretty sure I could build a road faster than that. If I pave my driveway, it happens in a day, right? Like what's up with all this extra work? Interesting, right? So all of that's happening in Canada too. It's all by design. Why are we poor? By design. Why are we poor? Because we're sending all of our money to foreign lands and the rest of it gets tied up in bureaucracy and sent to lawyers and consultants and experts. That's it. That's it. I wish it weren't so, but it is. Ego Canada. This is our tax dollars at work. I'm not kidding. Oh my gosh, I wish I was kidding. I wish this was parody because I would laugh more, but I'm just laughing medium because, oh my God, we paid for this. Oh, okay. So women's hockey is drafting men to women's hockey. And we're supposed to celebrate this. And we're paying for it too. Eagle Canada says, Jessica, this is Jessica, by the way. I sent this to a friend and he said, I'd still, And I was like, no, dude, no. Come on, man. That wasn't the point. Jessica heard her name called him, her, what? Jessica heard his name called when he was drafted into pro hockey. But all some people hear is one word. Get Jessica's whole story at Eagle, see the person. So not many 27-year-old barista men transition to pro hockey. But when you do get drafted by a women's hockey league, it helps if you're a man. So what? Jessica étendue. Oh, okay, sorry. I thought that was the second tweet. I was going to read it and then I realized we were French. So Eagle Canada is making sure to do this in both languages. This is Jessica, the man, right? Like that's not a woman. And why are we drafting men for female hockey? Could I get drafted? I could be a pretty good enforcer. I can skate. Like, are you kidding me? Holy cow. Contrarian says, so I don't agree with women's hockey. I agree with it less when they're drafting men. Contrarian says, look, Trudeau is, I don't know how to describe him in parliamentary language. This is Indian media talking about Canada, and it's interesting, and they don't like Justin Trudeau. Yesterday, I showed you that Justin Trudeau went on stage with a Punjab star who sold out an arena in Canada, and he was saying, oh, we're so post-national, we're making history, and et cetera, et cetera. And these guys took it as a slight, as Justin Trudeau trying to separate Punjab and India, and Punjab is India, they say. But regardless of all of that, I just think it's interesting that everything Trudeau does is wrong, and yet still he continues. And nobody seems to have the ability to stop him, and that's weird. Here's Indian media. Here we go.
Look, Trudeau is, I don't know how to describe him in parliamentary language.
Oh, this is too fast. Yes, I do listen to the foreign stuff in double speed. It is a little bit more difficult, but you get there. It's not completely unintelligible. Here we go.
Look, Trudeau is, I don't know how to describe him in parliamentary language, but the bottom line is, if you're talking about diversity, I can't think of any country in the world which has greater diversity than India. So Canada doesn't stack up anywhere near that. But clearly, given the kind of politics Canada has been following, the reference to Punjab was not innocent. It was very clearly aimed at driving a distinction between Punjab and India. This is something that the Canadians have been the cat's paw of many countries in the West who have been trying to do it. Now, it's all very well for Vivek to talk about, it's a failure of foreign policy. Maybe he can tell us, if he was the foreign minister, how he would handle India's foreign policy.
Very small question, and I hope.
So I'll just leave it there. But I think it's interesting that they're seeing what's happening in Canada. And they're saying, this is really effing weird. And from Canada, yeah, it's really weird. It's really weird. Great that there are pop stars that are so popular around the world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not like India having Taylor Swift, right? It's not like Canada's clamoring to see this guy who was at the arena. It's because we have such a big population of Indian expats or Punjab expats that arena got sold out. It wasn't that this person's music transcended culture like Taylor Swift or Michael Jackson or anything like that. It's that we just have a lot of people here. And so I didn't go to that concert. I didn't know who that guy was. I couldn't pronounce his name, right? And I'm willing to bet if I was to ask, 10 people on the street of downtown Toronto, they wouldn't know him either because they're not from here, not from there. Well, maybe they would know him. They'd be like, oh yeah, I know that guy from back home. But still, I think fundamentally it is a flex that is meant to underline how diversity is our strength. And what nonsense, what absolute ridiculous nonsense. Look around, for crying out loud. Michael Barrett says, let's talk about money and misappropriation, misuse of tax dollars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Michael Barrett, who's an MP, says, Liberals, a conservative MP, just to make sure we all know, he says, Liberals claim they solved inflation even as millions of Canadians are forced to line up at food banks. Grocery prices are up, food bank use is up, debt is up. After 9 years, Trudeau is not worth the cost. So again, branding, right? There's a very, very clear branding line that's coming through the conservative communications. And it should. That's how politics works. Amy Ham says, is this $68 check the big payout Justin Trudeau has been bragging about? That's less than a tank of gas. It's less than a bag of groceries. Thanks for nothing. Petrified COVID Parrot says 8 out of 10 Canadians are richer because of that $68 check, even though the average family pays out over $10,000 a year in climate taxes. Check your science. So, Petrified COVID Parrot. He's a pretty good parody account to follow. Ace of Spades says, now the inflation rate is down to 18% instead of 21%. You and the Bank of Canada, BlackRock, Vanguard elites are full of it. Lies and more lies. You obviously don't live in Canada where everything costs 5 to 10 times more than it did 4 years ago. Why did Wayne Smith resign from StatsCan? So she's responding to Chrystia Freeland saying, inflation in Canada fell to 2.7% in June. For 6 months in a row, inflation has been within the Bank of Canada's target range of 1 to 3%. In June, the bank lowered the interest rates, making Canada the first G7 country to do so. Our responsible economic and fiscal plan is working. No, it's not. No, it's not. Not at all. And the StatsCan head quits unexpectedly over concerns about agency's loss of independence. So they're manipulating the stats, is what she's saying in a not so subtle way. She's saying that this guy left because StatsCan lost independence, and suddenly we've had 6 months of no inflation, everybody. Oh my gosh, it's just exactly where we want it to be. So they are creating a reality around fiscal policy, around money, by manipulating statistics, right? I think there's a book called How to Lie with Statistics. Chrystia Freeland read it and then read it again. She was like, ooh, with lots of flags and, Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful